Good morning, you all. Welcome to your maths lesson for Monday, the 22nd of February. We're going to have a little break from fractions and do some time for a couple of weeks. So let's have a look at your warm-up for today. So today in our main lesson, we're going to be learning to tell the time to the nearest 5 minutes. And for our warm-up, I would like you to pause and have a go at telling these times. So it's, can I read an analog clock to the nearest quarter of an hour? Okay, so the clocks are here and the times are along the bottom. So can you match the numbers with the times for me? So pause here and have a try at that. Okay, so if we move on, so we can have a look at our answers. The first clock says 2:30 because we can see the shorthand, the hour hand, is on, it should really be just past the 2. And the minute hand, which is the long one, is halfway round the clock, isn't it? It's pointing straight down at the 6. That was 2:30. This one is number 2, is 11:45. You can see the hour hand is coming up to the 12, and the minute hand is on the 2 side of the clock. Okay, this is the past side of the clock, and then when it's coming back up the other side, that's the 2 side of the clock. And it is a quarter turn, a quarter of an hour, until 12 o'clock, so that was 11:45. This one is 3 o'clock because the minute hand is pointing up at the 12, and the hour hand is pointing to the 3. 3:45 down here, so it's a quarter of a turn, quarter of an hour until 4 o'clock. Number 5 is 6:30. So we've got the hour hand pointing down at 6, and we've got the minute hand pointing at 6 too. And as I said, really, that hour hand should be kind of halfway between the 6 and 7 because it's 6:30. But it's roughly in the right place, so we'll let that go. And then number 6 is 7:15 because it's a quarter of an hour past 7 o'clock. So that minute hand has moved a quarter of the way around the clock to make 7:15. You can see the hour hand's just gone past 7 there. So hopefully you remember those from other years in school. Let's move on to today's lesson. So, put myself down here at the way. When we're telling the time, it's really important to be able to count in 5s. Okay, so I just want you to count with me to make sure that we are confident counting in 5s. Okay, and then we might even go backwards. So watch my arrow on the screen carefully. Okay, so on 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. Okay, then we'll go back again to 0 and start again. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 20, 15, 10. Back up again. 15, 20, 25, 30, 25, 30, 35, 40, 35, 40, 45, 50, 45, 40, 35, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. So if you want to, and you're not very confident at counting in 5s, you can pause here. You can just use your finger on the screen to count up and down in 5s until you feel quite confident in that, because it's really important that you can do that because it will help you to tell the time to the nearest 5 minutes. In fact, it's going to be really, really tricky to be able to tell the time if you can't do that. So make sure you feel really happy doing that. Don't worry about going backwards. That was just for fun. As long as you can count up in 5s. Okay. So let's move on to the lesson. First thing we need to have a little think about is remind ourselves how many minutes are there in an hour. Okay, so there are 60 minutes in an hour. So that big minute hand on a clock, when it starts at the 12, the time that it takes it to go all the way around the clock and back up to the top, that is an hour, and that is 60 minutes. Okay, so it goes on 60 little minutes all the way around the clock and back up to the top, and that makes 1 hour. Okay, we've talked about this, I've mentioned it on the previous pages, but I haven't actually said it explicitly, so we will now. Why is 15 minutes called quarter past? So just have a pause a minute and have a think. You can think about both of these questions actually. Why is 15 minutes called quarter past? And why is 30 minutes called half past? Okay, so just pause and have a think about that now. Okay, so I deliberately put this picture up because I was hoping that you would see the fractions link to this. So if we were to divide this clock into 4 equal pieces, so draw a line straight down the middle there and draw a line straight across there, then that piece that's coloured in there would be 1/4, wouldn't it? So it takes the minute hand from the 12, 1/4 turn to get down to the 3, okay? So it's 15 minutes past. So it goes 5, 10, 15 minutes past, but we call it 1/4 past. If you said for this time, it is 12:15, that would be correct. If you said it's 15 minutes past 12, that's also correct. Okay, so you can say either. But it's called 1/4 past because the minute hand is 1/4 of the way around the clock. And likewise over here, when the minute hand is on the 6, it's called 1/2 past or 30 minutes past, but we often call it 1/2 past the hour because it's gone halfway around the clock. So it started at 12 and it's gone halfway around the clock, and you can see half of the clock is coloured in there. Okay, so that's why we call it 1/2 past, because that minute hand is halfway round its journey round the clock. Okay, so that's why we call it 1/2 past and 1/4 past. But like I said, you can say how many minutes past it is. If you say 15 minutes past and 30 minutes past, that's true too, and they are right, and you'd be okay with that. But we do generally say 1/4 past and 1/2 past and 1/4 to. So let's move on. So today, as I said at the beginning, we're going to be revising telling the time to the nearest 5 minutes. And we might have gone over this before. In fact, we have gone over this before. But with the other lockdowns and stuff, I think it may sometimes get a little bit lost in translation. So I just want to remind you of this before we move on to some more tricky stuff later in the week. So imagine this minute hand here, this long one, that's the minute hand. It starts at 12 and it moves to 1. It doesn't do that in one swoop, it moves slowly along. And can you see in here, there's lots of little minutes in between. And if we count them, we can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes. So each of those little tiny lines, we're going around the edge of the clock, are worth 1 minute, okay? And once that big hand, that minute hand, gets to the 1, it has moved 5 minutes. Okay, so each of the big numbers on the clock are worth 5 minutes. So when we count round the clock, we count round in 5s when we're pointing to the big numbers on the clock. Okay, and you can see over here, we've got 10 minutes past shaded in. So that minute hand there started on the 12 and it moved 5, 10 minutes round the clock. Okay, and if you can see the little ones, there's 1, it actually went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, like that. But you can imagine it, once it gets around over here, if we were trying to count all of those little lines around the clock on our watches, that would be really tricky to see, wouldn't it, and really difficult. So we count them in bunches of 5. And quite often when we tell the time to somebody, if someone stops you in the street and asks you what the time is, people, adults, children that can tell the time really well, will often just sort of round it to the nearest 5 minutes. People don't need to know that it's 11 minutes past 12 particularly. So often you just say, oh, it's 10 past 12, or it's just gone 10 past 12, something like that. Okay, so we often tell the time to the nearest 5 minutes in everyday life. So, as I said, we can't count around all these little tiny ones. So on these numbers, with big numbers are each worth 5, okay? So we get count round in 5. So if I was doing this one, we'd start on the 12 and we go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. Okay, and I'm back to the beginning. All right, so let's move on. This is just the same as what I said before, and I was just going to count round. I've given you a bigger clock now, so let's do that one more time while we've got the bigger clock, because I forgot I'd put this one on here. So start at the 12 and we count round 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. So that minute hand tells us how many minutes past or to the hour it is, and then the short hour hand tells us which hour we are talking about. So in this case, we're saying it's something past 12 because that hour hand has gone past 12. If we're on the 2 side of the clock over here, then it would be coming up to 1 o'clock, wouldn't it? Because that's the one that the hour hand is getting to next. So let's have a little look. Can you please just have a little look and pause if you need to, and just make sure you understand on the 2 side of the clock, okay? So once we get to the 2 side, so this is the past side of the clock, once we do the first half, and then once we start coming back up the other side, that's the 2 side of the clock. Because instead of counting around all of those minutes, it becomes quicker to count how many minutes are left until it gets to the next hour, okay? So you can see here, the minute hand has gone past halfway now. So we're climbing back up the other side of the clock. So that hour, so it tells us it's something to something. Now, what is this shorthand going to get to next? It's going to get to the 1. So it is something to 1. And if we count round in 5s from where that hand is, how many minutes is it going to take for this hand to get all the way up to 1 o'clock? Okay, so we'd say it's going to take 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 minutes to get all the way up there. So we say it is 25 minutes to 1. Okay, it's not 25 minutes to 12 because it's already gone past 12 o'clock. So we were talking about past 12, and then here now we're talking about how many minutes to 1. And then here it's minutes to again because it's on the 2 side of the clock. Look, it's climbing back up the other side. So we're going to count how many minutes it is. You can see, look, it's much easier to count those white minutes there, how many more it's going to be until it gets up to 1 o'clock than it is to count all the way around there to say how many minutes past 12 it is. So we can count that really easily, 5, 10, and we can say it is in 10 minutes time, it's going to be 1 o'clock. So it's 10 minutes to 1, okay, because it's going to be 1 o'clock. We could count round how many minutes past 12 it is, and that would be 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. So we could say it's 50 minutes past 12. And when it's digital time, we would write 12:50. But when we're telling the time on these kind of clocks, which are called analog clocks, then we don't say it's 50 minutes past 12, because that just takes ages to count round. We can easily see it's 10 minutes to 1, okay, because that's a quicker, easier way to tell the time. Okay, can you pause here? And I would like you to have a go. It's quite tricky. I'm not going to ask you to draw lots of clocks. This is the only one, certainly for the time being. But can you try and draw a clock for me? And can you just draw where you would put the hands to show the time 25 minutes to 6? Okay, so have a think about where your line's going. Oops, where your line would be on your clock. If your line was down the middle, this is the past. That's a bit annoying. This is the past side of the clock, and this one is the to side of the clock. Okay, so we're doing 25 minutes to 6. All right, so have a go at drawing with me that line, because it might confuse you. Pause here, have a go at drawing just a rough clock face, and draw 25 minutes to 6. Off you go. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the hour. Okay, so it's 25 minutes to 6. So it's going to be coming up to 6 o'clock. So my shorthand is going to be pointing somewhere near here. Okay, it's 25 minutes until it gets to 6 o'clock. So it's not going to be on the 6 yet because it hasn't got to 6 o'clock yet. In fact, 25 minutes to 6 is kind of halfway between almost. So I'm going to put my shorthand is going to be on its way to 6 o'clock, but not actually there yet. Okay, so I've got my little, I can do little arrows if I want to. Okay, so mine looks like it's pointing a bit too close to 5, really, but it doesn't matter. So it's 25 minutes to 6. Okay, so it's on its way to 6 o'clock. It's gone past the 5. Not going to let me move it. Come on, let me move it. No, it doesn't want to. Never mind. Let's not mess around with it. So it's gone past the 5. It's going to be coming up to 6 o'clock. Now, my minutes, 25 minutes to 6. So I need to work out where I'm going to put that. So I'm going to start from my 12 and I'm going to count back my 25 minutes. Okay, so starting from 12, I'm going to count back to my time. So it's not past, so I'm not going this way, I'm going to. So we go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and I get to the 7. So my long hand, my minute hand, is going to be pointing exactly to the 7. Okay, so as long as you've got your hands, your minute hand should be pointing to the 7. Try not to go over the top of the 7 because it makes it hard to read. And your hour hand needs to be somewhere in between the 5 and the 6, ideally a little bit closer to the 6. Okay. If you've put it on the 6, that's all right as well. We'll let that slide. Okay. So let's move on. Can you pause the video here for me, and can you have a go at writing down what times are shown on each of the clocks? Again, you don't need to draw the clocks. I can give them numbers for you if that helps. So that can be number 1, and that one can be number 2, and that clock can be number 3. Okay, so write the number of the clock and then just write what time it shows, okay, in analog time. So I want you to use the words to and past in there. Off you go. Okay, so, oh, didn't show the answers. How rude. Let's do that. So this one, I can see from the minute hand, it's half past something because that minute hand has moved around halfway around the clock from the 12. It's half past. What is it half past? It's half past 4. It's past the 4. It's not half past 5 because that hour hand hasn't gone past the 5 yet. So that time there is half past 4. Then this one here, I can see that this time my minute hand is on the 2 side of the clock. Okay, it's on this side of the clock. So it's coming back up the other side. So it's going to be something to something. What's it coming up to? Well, that hour hand is nearly on the 8, isn't it? So it's something to 8. How many minutes to 8? Well, I can tell that. I can start at 12 and I can count back to see how many minutes to it is. So I'll start on 12 and I'll go 5, 10. So it's 10 minutes until that minute hand gets back up to the 12s, and then it will be 8 o'clock. So my time is 10 to 8. Okay, now you can write 10 minutes to 8 if you want, or you can just write 10 to 8. I don't mind. You can write, oops. 10 minutes to 8, or if you just wrote 10 to 8, that's fine as well. And then the last one, I can see that my clock is, it's a past. My minute hand is on the past side of the clock. And this one is actually just, it's not quite pointing at the 1, but that's what it's supposed to be pointing at. They're not very straight, are they? But imagine that it's pointing at the 1, and we're going to say it's 5 minutes. So we start on 12 and we count round 1 jump of 5. So that's 5 minutes past. What's it 5 minutes past? Well, it's past 11, isn't it? Because 5 minutes ago it would have been 11 o'clock. So it's 5 minutes past 11. So we either just write 5 past 11, or you can write 5 minutes past 11. It doesn't matter. If you're being super clever and you thought, actually, that one's pointing a little bit past it, I'm going to say it's 6 minutes past 11. That's fine too. You definitely get the mark as well. Okay, let's move on to our Hinge question. What time does the clock show? So can you pause and have a look? Do you think it says 10 past 2? Do you think it shows 50 past 1? Do you think it shows 10 to 2 or 10 to 1? So pause here and have a look. Okay, so the answer was dun, 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 10 to 2. So I will show you why. Because it's on the 2 side of the clock. Okay, so our hand's coming up the 2 side of the clock. And we can see if we start on 12 and count back, it's 5, 10 minutes to something, and it's 10 minutes to 2. It's not 10 past 2 because we're on the to side of the clock. This is the past side of the clock, and we've gone past that. It's not 10 to 1. It is 10 to, but it's not 10. It's 10 to 2, not 10 to 1. It's already gone past 1 o'clock, so it's not 10 to 1. It's 10 to 2. And this one was a bit of a cheeky one I put in there, 50 past 1, just to see if you were listening earlier, really, because technically that isn't the wrong time, but that I did say that's not how we say the time when we're doing analog clocks. If it was a digital time, it may say 1:50. But we're doing analog clocks today, and we are on the to side of the clock. So if we start on this 12 and we count round, it is 50 minutes past 1. So technically that's not completely wrong, but that isn't how we read analog time. So the correct answer is 10 to 2. So well done if you got that right. So on to today's activity. Silver, there's some clocks. I've numbered them. You just have to write down the time for me in analog form, so using to and past. And then if you pause and have a go at that, and then we'll move on. Okay, and then I've got the answers that I've just put up there. So again, you can pause here and check that you got those answers right. And then when you're ready, we will move on to the gold task, which is here. So the clock shows, Dora says the clock shows 10 minutes to 3. And Amir says the hour hand is not quite pointing to the 3, so it must be 10 to 2. Who do you agree with? Explain your thinking. So can you pause here and have a try at that? Okay, and I will reveal the answer. So if you haven't written down your answer yet, then pause again now and write it down. Okay, and do try, make sure you try and write something down before you have a look at the answer, because otherwise it's a bit like going to the marking station, isn't it, before you've done the work. So you need to try and have a go for yourself first so you can see if you're right. And then we can have a look at the answer. So Dora is correct. Because it's not 3 o'clock yet, the hour hand will not be exactly on 3. Okay, because it's still got a few minutes to come back up, which is what we've talked about during the main session, isn't it? That hour hand will only get to exactly on the 3 when that minute hand gets up to the 12. So hang on to your hats and stay here a second if you're ready to move on to platinum. The clock has lost its minute hand. Oh no, what time could it be? Justify your answer. So there's more than one answer here. What time do you think it could be? Okay. Have a little look, and we will be a bit flexible about what the answer could be, because it could be within a range. Pause here and have a go. Okay, let's have a look. The time is around 6:30. Okay, so when I said there's a range of answers, you can I've said anything between 25 to and 6:45. Okay, so any of those times, if you said 25 to, 26 minutes to, 6:30, you know, whatever, ideally a time around about 6:30, because that hour hand is sort of halfway, just over halfway between the 6 and the 7. So it's going to be, the minute hand is going to be somewhere between this 6, or it says over here 25. So yeah, about there, round to there. Okay, so anywhere your minute hand pointing there would have been correct. And then that's you done for today. So well done. Well done if you stayed, had a go at the platinum as well. They can be tricky sometimes. And I'll see you again tomorrow. And tomorrow we're going to be learning about telling the time to the nearest minute. So you can look forward to that. Okay. See you tomorrow.